Most animation just set in stagnation, watching consumers pay.
Then along came a spider who sat down beside him, opened up a can of spray paint and said, "This is how you innovate, baby!" To say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a hit when it came out is like saying fish enjoy a spot of swimming every now and then. It's a gargantuan understatement. This movie exploded onto the scene in a cel-shaded comic book cloud of blood-pumping action, heart-crushing drama, and gut-destroying self-awareness. With its tongue in one cheek and a tear running down the other, Spider-Verse managed to nail that ideal balance between goofy crowd-pleasing fun and genuine emotional resonance, all while parading around in a stylish ensemble of visual flair that took multiple tailors to pimp out properly. And when I say multiple, I mean 177 animators in one studio at times, using tons of unique techniques such as animating on twos for more sharp, crunchy movements, misaligned colors to match the authentic feel of a comic book, and constant use of onomatopoeia to show that words really can hurt. Boom! Oh, what I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall during the making of this film.
Wow, look at how well they rendered that thing. That spider looks way better than you, dude.
Needless to say, Sony struck absolute diamond with this little venture. And while the company did capitalize on its popularity with Spider-Verse themed merch and tie-ins and friendly neighborhood pretty patties, we provide the authentic Spider-Verse burger experience. Now where's my $30,000? At least they never went the route of some franchises by spinning the dang property off into oblivion. Until today, that is. Allow me to show you a parallel universe where Sony got incredibly greedy, a stretch of the imagination, I know, and decided to spin a web of spin-off properties featuring the major players in the original Spider-Verse movie. I mean, there's apparently been a massive 16-month gap between Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, meaning there's a veritable playground of unused canon for us to play around with. And I'm gonna build me one heck of a story. If you have any ideas for solo outings with these guys and gals, leave them in the comments below. But for now, let's split this cast into spider chunks and see if we can craft some spin-off slam dunks. Surprise attack! First up, let's crank the saturation down to 0 and investigate the mystery of Spider Noir. Hands down, best minor spider person of the original 3. I love his old school hard-boiled detective tendencies and early 30s slang, and all you need is one earful of his black and white brooding to know that he's edgier than a razor blade on a Slipknot grindstone.
I'm Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man.
Konnichiwa, Spider-Man.
I'm Nick freaking Cage.
Without a doubt, he's the one I'd like to see a spin-off for the most. And considering he only showed up at the very end of Across the Spider-Verse, and to my knowledge was never present in the Spider Society lobby, we have more than enough wiggle room to send him on some very special missions. And I've got 2 ideas for how his story would go down. The first one is pretty obvious, just a straightforward crime dramedy miniseries set in Pete's progressively monochrome world, taking place between the first and second movies, while also showing more details about his origins.
Here, I'll pitch it to you. The year is 1933. It's the absolute pits of the Great Depression. Things look bleaker than the universe's color palette. But as luck would have it, one Peter Parker was given gifts beyond comprehension by a radioactive spider. And after his multiverse trekking adventure, he's ready to get back to business. Join Peter on a journey of action, drama, and drama, as he works hard to fisticuff mooks, baddies, and self-doubts into next year with savage brutality and stylish gumption.
Lord and Miller have always been masters of taking the tropes of oversaturated genres and utilizing them both for comedy and legitimate emotion. So something like this could be right up their alley. We could have all the wisecracking, fist-flying, down-to-earth action of crime-fighting detective work, all the while Peter's edgy comedic tendencies are cranked up to 11, much like the stove he puts his hand on just to feel anything.
Nope, I still feel nothing.
But at the same time, they could also work in some interesting commentary and emotional depth, taking inspiration from both the time period and even the original source material. For example, Peter mentions the loss of his Uncle Benjamin during a scene in the first movie. If you look at his comic of origin, you'll find that Uncle Benjamin was actually a World War II fighter pilot who unfortunately died in action. If the creators decide to go down this route with the character, they can include all kinds of talking points about the nature of war, conflict, and power. Whether you're a citizen, a soldier, an activist, or a crime-fighting arachnid, no one is exempt from the unjust suffering that comes with war. We're all united in pain, but we can also be united in hope. Those with power need to serve as a symbol of justice and perseverance in these trying times. Inspire others, work with others, take care of others as well as ourselves. Heal from the tragedies of conflict, whether it be small bruises or massive wounds. And no matter what happens, never lose sight of yourself and who you're fighting for. You could also tackle the genuine tragedy of Peter's character in a much more serious way. This is by far one of the most bleak universes we've seen in Spider-Verse so far. So if there was ever a spin-off where laying the drama on thick would be warranted, it would be right here. I can imagine the series starting off simple enough. Peter punches some grayscale goons in the gobs, cracking down on crime while some jokes are cracked at his expense. He'd be there to provide some calming words of wisdom and be a symbol of justice for citizens in these trying times, while also finding moments to further investigate the Rubik's Cube that he borrowed from Miles' universe, learning the colors and also just trying to solve the dang thing. But as the years go by, the Nazi regime gets worse, events like World War II are slowly approaching, and Peter is forced to witness even greater unjust suffering of his people at the hands of heartless monsters. This compels him to take on more and more cases as Spider Noir, literally shoving everything else in his life aside so he can do all the surveillance, investigation, and fighting by himself. This not only destroys him both physically and mentally, but also deprives his people of their symbol of hope because he makes next to no public appearances anymore. One night he just barely escapes a near-death experience, fleeing by the skin of his teeth on pure adrenaline, and when he finally makes it back to his apartment, he absolutely breaks down. His vision goes blurry, his heart starts beating out of control, he tries to close his eyes and focus on steady breathing to calm himself down, and then when he finally opens his eyes again, the first thing to stand out to him is a small speck of red coloration sticking out from a pile of crumbled up and rejected plans from all the missions he's been embarking on for weeks. Surprise, surprise, it's the Rubik's Cube he shoved aside so long ago. One of the things that not only piqued his personal curiosity, but also just made him happy to study, investigate, and understand. At this point, everything goes silent as Peter slowly turns the sides of the cube. Click, 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 click. The clicking then transitions to the ticking of a clock as a piano song fades in, and we see Peter just laying on his bed, riling his brain to both solve the cubicle puzzle, but also solve the puzzle of his current situation. He eventually goes for a walk through abandoned or unseen places throughout the city. Probably places where he did all his surveillance like rooftops, alleyways, under bridges, etc. All while focusing on almost nothing but the cube. He thinks back to both his Uncle Ben's advice and also the adventures he had with his multiversal friends. He realizes just how much he's lost sight of what's important and how dangerous things could be if he continues down this same path. He needs to start taking better care of himself, physically, mentally, and emotionally. He needs to be more willing to work with others who are on the same side as him, and he needs to restore his position as an iconic and ever-present hero of the people. Focus less on just being a private eye and more on being in the public eye. And that's when he finally puts it all together, both literally and figuratively. From that day on, Peter starts making major changes to the way he handles himself. He starts working closer with groups like the police and the government in order to neutralize threats more effectively. Maybe he shows the police some of his best surveillance spots throughout the city so they can station themselves there. Maybe he brings back evidence he finds to other detectives so they can piece things together while he goes after another case. This lightens the load incredibly on Peter and makes the city's entire justice system function like a well-oiled machine. And of course, Peter steps out of the shadows more often than not to once again cement himself as an emblem of justice and perseverance. And his first major public appearance? A free all-ages showcase of his now completed Rubik's Cube, allowing people in his universe to feed their senses and experience something they've never experienced before, just like he did on his big life-changing journey. Okay, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I think this is a pretty compelling idea. Good drama, nice characterization, plenty of room for references, and a tried and true message about self-care, sharing of burdens, and the multifaceted responsibilities that come with being a hero. Lord and Miller have yet to tackle the noir genre with their usual double-dip strategy of silly and serious, so I'd love to see what they do with something like this. My other idea is a bit more out there, but would definitely take better advantage of the Spiderverse lore. In this story, when he's not participating in Wolfenstein slugfests, Peter's been thinking a lot about his multiversal escapades. While he has been doing a good job at cleaning up crime in his universe, he can't seem to shake these aspirations of wanting to do more. He now knows that there's a whole cluster of worlds out there full of innocent lives plagued by injustice. Some might even have it worse than him and his people.
Oh, you don't know the half of it, buddy.
If only he had the means to help them too. Well, as luck would have it, he gets contacted by our good friend Miguel and is given a golden opportunity. Miguel says that he's been monitoring Spider Noir since the events of the first movie and could use his unique set of skills for a certain side project he's been working on. He's part of a special society of Spider-Men, the Spider Society, with the goal of maintaining the multiverse. And he wants Spider Noir to use his covert skills, secretive abilities, and tendency to get through places undetected to keep a sharp eye on certain universes and ensure that specific canon events go off without a hitch. He's free to intervene if he thinks it will keep the story on track, but he absolutely cannot be seen or interact with anything that could disrupt the flow of a Spider-Person's key life events. Spider Noir accepts the task, and the series would center around him going to different universes in each episode, seeing how other Spider-Man stories play out, and of course utilizing his skills to help keep the canon in check. As the series goes on, however, he does start to feel a little guilty that he's essentially helping to orchestrate these mostly tragic events. He knows it's what must be done, according to Miguel, but that doesn't make him feel any better about it. So he starts ever so slightly interfering with things in each universe while maintaining his invisibility to others. Like maybe after the major loved one in a Spider-Man's life passes away and they go for a walk to clear their head, he might use the fact that the wind follows him everywhere to blow a cool breeze in their face. Or maybe take a few petals from flowers and waft them in the grieving MC's direction, making the air a little fresher and more colorful. Maybe he could blow a flyer through their window advertising some kind of bake sale or adoption day at an animal shelter, encouraging them to get a sweet treat or maybe an animal companion to keep them company. Maybe he phones into a radio show and requests a song that was one of the favorites of the MC's lost loved one. Cause hey, he said he couldn't be seen, he didn't say he couldn't be heard. He basically provides little day brighteners for suffering spider people while eyeing them from the shadows. Kinda like if Batman was your guardian angel. He knows better than anyone what it's like to suffer alone, and he wants to do everything he can to ensure that the burden is lessened for others. Eventually, Miguel catches on to what Peter's been doing behind his back, and being the overly nitpicky story stickler that he is, fires him from his position, banishes him back to his world, and takes his dimensional watch away. With all that said though, Spider Noir doesn't have any regrets. He was able to brighten up the lives of a lot of different people across multiple planes of existence. They would have had it much harder if he hadn't done what he did. And as he sits on the bed screwing around with his Rubik's Cube and contemplating his life choices, we get a nice slow motion close-up shot on the cube. In each little brightly colored square, Peter can see a reflection of a different Spider-Person he helped along his journey, symbolic of the fact that he added a little color to everyone's world. And we actually get to see him take off his mask for the first time and smile, as he truly feels at peace. He may have broken his promise to Miguel, but he also managed to lessen the burden of so many renditions of his character. In the end, his choices and views on the big picture were very morally gray. I am sorry, we are not taking questions or bullets at this time. This one might be a bit too complex, but it does have a lot of potential. It would give us a great chance to see other universes without clogging up the movies too much, and it could explain Spider Noir's absence from the second movie while letting him go on his own unique adventure. A great way to show that this Peter is still kicking butt and taking names even when he's not on the literal silver screen. What a guy!
How did the pig tracks get on the ceiling?
Yes, he is indeed a pig. Or more or less a spider who got bit by a radioactive pig. Yeah, seriously, there was like this anthro pig who became radioactive from a nuclear-powered hairdryer or something and bit a spider in a fit of delusion. It was a whole thing, I don't even know. And from this debacle emerged Peter Porker, aka Spider-Ham. This is basically what would happen if Warner Brothers owned Spider-Man. He's got all the conventions of classic Looney Tunes under his belt, and when you throw in funny man John Mulaney with a dash of salt and pepper, you've got a meal fit for a king. Oh, it's the meat of kings. As for his spin-off ideas, I decided to go less in a drama-filled direction and stick more with slice-of-life comedy, which fits Mr. Porker much better. The first one doesn't actually come from me, but from Mulaney himself. A Peter Porker spin-off movie set in his own dimension, which mainly focuses on his everyday job at the Daily Beagle instead of his heroic duties as Spider-Man, taking a literal page out of movies like The Post or All the President's Men. I'm not gonna lie, there's something about the concept of cartoon characters just doing normal everyday things that really tickles me. And it would be nice to see a Spider-Man story where the MC's duties at his day job are seen less as another hurdle in his life and more as the main focus. Plus, the excuse of Peter being a reporter would give us the perfect platform to better explore the world he lives in. A place full of anthropomorphic animals and cleverly named side characters, like Dr. Doom and the King Pig. Also, he demands that the movie be filled with bacon puns. A man after my own heart. Speaking of bacon puns, here's my idea. Instead of a movie, Spider-Ham would have a series of shorts known as Bacon Bits. To forever immortalize his tales of web-slinging service, he decides to start writing a memoir of his life. Not to sell, but just to keep for posterity's sake and maybe show to future generations down the line. He tells goofy stories of his escapades to someone he trusts to write them down, like maybe Aunt May or some other family member or friend who is sworn to secrecy. And every short would involve a different anecdote of his time as Spider-Ham, told in the usual hilarious John Mulaney fashion. As a massive fan of John Mulaney's stand-up, one of his best traits as a comedian is taking normal everyday stories and exaggerating or wordsmithing them into hilarious bits. So having a series where John can literally just ham it up and narrate stories in his usual way, all set in a ridiculous cartoon world where anything is possible, just sounds like absolute gold. I would absolutely watch a series like that. I also had a third idea which is vague but kinda neat. It would be another movie called Peter Porker in Cut to the Chase. You know, titled like one of those old Looney Tunes cartoons. It would start off featuring a montage of Spider-Man constantly chasing bad guys and then putting them away and then chasing the same bad guys over and over and over again. Eventually, though, we get a bit of introspection from Peter, where he starts to realize how repetitive, samey, and futile this whole thing is. He goes to therapy where he has a bit of an existential crisis, realizing that his entire life has essentially been a chase. The villains are an endless chase, trying to move up in his job has always been a chase, and yet even when he catches what he wants, it always seems to slip away, and then he's back at square one. As he explains these problems to the therapist, we get to see Peter in a bunch of Looney Tunes-style chase sequences for each scenario he describes, with all the punchy sound effects and crazy antics you'd expect. Basically, he'd be framing his entire life as one big endless chase cartoon, both metaphorically and literally. We'd get an homage to the grandfathers of animated slapstick and get to see a little more into Peter's character. Not my best idea, but I think it can make for something pretty special. Spider-Ham seems to be the most likely character to get a spin-off, and if he does, I'd be more than happy to dig in. And lastly, let's move on from spinning a web to spinning a weed, cause it's Peni Parker. I'm probably gonna get dogpiled for saying this, but despite my fascination with all animation, I've never been much of an anime guy. Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly fine genre. Nice sword, by the way. I've just never seen an anime that made me think, wow, this has changed my entire perspective on life. I must go down this Asian rabbit hole at once. I'm not completely uncultured, though. I mean, Spy Family was good. Alchemist was good. Bakugan was good. Anyway, for spin-off ideas, there's pretty much only one direction to go. Full-blown, Monster of the Week anime series. Peni has the distinct honor of being the only original Spider-Peep to appear in the Spider Society lobby, at least based on my vigilant scanning eyes. So I imagine that her series would start off as a simple episodic adventure set in the year 3145, boasting a full millennium of technology and advancements that far surpass ours. It'd be like Big Hero 6 if Hero got a sex change. It'd be great. We could witness some juicy details about the death of Penny's father, her relationship with her spider buddy, and even some of the villains native to her world, like Mysterio, who's actually a creepy, obsessive fan of hers. So, Syndrome is a weeaboo. My brain is now forever tainted by that image. Thank you!
Looks like I've hit the jackpot!
However, later on in the series, the threats to future New York start looking more and more out of place. Like, even in a world full of monsters, superhumans, bubblegum, and giant robots, these dudes just do not fit. big shocker, these are anomalies that stumbled into Penny's universe by chance. She eventually meets up with different members of the Spider Society who aid her in the intense fight to save her city. And once the cross-dimensional cads are disposed of, they offer Penny a position in their little syndicate to help keep other worlds safe from threats like these. And she accepts. Only if they allow her the technology and workspace to soup up her robot for future missions. They bring her through a portal, she gets acquainted with the other Spider folks, bada bing bada boom, everything adds up in the end. As you can tell, a Penny spinoff is the one I care about the least overall, but hey, if our little tech gremlin wanted to take baddies to Spider School, I wouldn't be opposed to it. And those are my ideas. While I don't expect any of these to actually happen, I would love to see the crew at least attempt a Spider-Verse spin-off project to see how it would fare. Heck, with Across the Spider-Verse finally out, they have tons more options for characters to pick from. Maybe I'll make a part 2 featuring all the sequel Spider-Men. How many were in it again? Oh my god. Yeah, no. Unless this video gets like 1 million views, I'm not touching that idea with a 39.5-foot pole. With that being said though, what do you guys think? Would you watch a spin-off featuring any of these Spider Peeps? Do you like my ideas or do you have your own? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.